Thank you and good evening. I have the job to read a citation of an icon. In fact, if I'm to read everything that he has done, we're going to be here for a long time. So I'm just going to scan through and let you know the important positions and things he has done in his life. Professor Hilary Inyang, African Academy of Science, member, former Duke Energy Distinguished Professor of Environmental Engineering and Science, and Director of the Global Institute of Energy and Environmental Systems of the North Carolina, Charlotte, USA, was recently appointed to the role of U.S. Ambassador's Distinguished Scholar to Ethiopia. Ethiopia is currently devising and implementing many socioeconomic initiatives to improve national productivity to generate benefits for its citizens. Professor Inyang, who has previously served in key intellectual and institutional leadership positions, including the Point Professorship at the University of Massachusetts, Lowell, USA, Chairmanship of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Science Board, that's Engineering Committee in Washington, D.C., USA, for 2 terms. Presidency of the African University and Science Technology, Abuja here, Nigeria, and Vice Chancellor of the Botswana International University of Science and Technology, Botswana. Professor Inyang, Professor Inyang has performed research expeditions to several regions worldwide, including Jiangsu, province of China, on mining subsidence and erosion, Kanti, please pardon my pronunciation, region of Siberia, Russia on oil spills, Slovenia on underground mining, the Niger Delta of Nigeria on oil spills and solid minerals management, Minas Gerais region of Brazil on laterite soil dusting, and Alaska Northern Area, USA, on permafrost degradation due to global climate change. He is a prolific developer of analytical frameworks, quantitative models, and field relevant data that has been used by agencies, researchers, private firms, and students worldwide. While contributing to policy development, his main research focus has been on containment, leaching, and dusting from materials which led to human health and environmental problems. Containment systems and materials for containment materials, barriers, geohazards, mitigation, and energy systems. He has anchored or co-anchored more than 268 research articles, book chapters, federal design manuals and textbooks, geoenvironmental engineering, principles and applications published by Marcel Decker. He was the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Energy Engineering of the American Society of Civil Engineers, an associate editor from editorial board member of 33 reference international journals and contributing editor of 3 books, including the United Nations Encyclopedia of Life Support Systems, Environmental Monitoring Section. In addition, as a guest editor, he has developed 29 special editions of refereed international journals. Professor Inyang has served on more than 100 technical and policy panels of government and professional societies, and has given more than 195 invited speeches and presentations on a variety of technical and policy issues at many institutions and agencies in several countries, including Goldberg Zoino Lecture at MIT, the Amoko Foundation Lecturer at Iowa State University, the Alcoa Endowed Lecture at Carnegie Mellon University, and addresses the Parliament of Switzerland 2001 and the Nigerian Senate 2012. He has co-chaired or chaired international conferences in Korea, Japan, Turkey, the United States, Brazil, Finland, Canada, Slovenia, Ghana, China, South Africa, Botswana, and Nigeria. He has served as principal investigator, co-principal investigator, and implementation leader on 50 projects. His research has been sponsored by several international and US agencies, including the United Nations Development Programme, Canadian Agency for International Development, Switzerland, US National Research Council, US National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, US National Science Foundation, US Department of Energy, US Department of Defense, US Highway Administration, International Public Works Federation, DuPont Corporation, Sandia National Laboratory, and Duke Energy Corporation. Professor Inyang holds a PhD with a double major in geotechnical engineering and materials and a minor in mineral resources from Iowa State University. He also has an MSc and BSc in civil engineering from North Dakota State University, Fargo, North Dakota, USA, and a BSc honors in geology from the University of Calabar, our own university in Nigeria. He has led many national expert groups and expeditions on environmental monitoring and waste containment systems, exemplified by his role from 1999 to 2003 as thematic editor/leader of the environmental monitoring section of the United Nations Encyclopedia of Life Support Systems. Under the auspices of the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, he has led the development of the Environmental Management Framework for Abuja, Nigeria's capital city. In another UNDP-sponsored project, he authored Nigeria's National Technical Guidance Manual for remediation of oil containment sites and reviews the site's remediation proposal for cleanup of identified sites. Through collaboration with research at the Nigerian University, led by Professor Shi Bin, the results of this work have been applied to construction projects in China. Inyang led the expert group on performance technology within the CATS group, convened by the US Department of Energy, US Environmental Protection Agency, and DuPont Corporation to author a book on these issues for use in practice. He is co-contributing editor of the second book, sponsored by the same organizations in 2005. like I said earlier on, this is just a summary of what this great man has done. And great young man, and he's on it again. So we want to welcome you to this conference. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, because I would like to honor the university and the leadership of the university, and those that put this together, and the audience that is getting in by virtual means. I first of all would like to thank this university. It's a premier university in this capital city of Abuja, and setting an example of how a private university should be: small size, dense, well equipped with faculty and all. But for today's event, most especially I'm grateful to Dr. Riskan Kanya, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research, IT, and many other things at that level for this university for putting this up. And Dr. Helen Jekeli, the Dean of the Postgraduate School. And these are the two entities that are going to benefit most from my lecture. I consider this one of the deepest lectures I've given in Nigeria on how to integrate intellectual systems in the areas of research and the areas of teaching to move this towards Nigeria's national development in much the same way as all these great institutions in the United States, MIT, my university, University of Massachusetts, my former university, and all those other certain institutions I served as a professor have done for the United States and many others for other countries. So if there are many people listening, I urge you to listen very attentively. I have compressed what I normally open as a workshop over a period of 3 months to a period of 3 hours today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to segment this into 3 segments. The first part is going to deal with the rationalization of research and intellectual systems with particular reference to Nigeria. The second part will deal with research intensification for a university of this status. Then the third part will focus on teaching and how lecturers and others can do teaching and can construct types of teaching, which I would also have done for research too. I'm going to let all of you postgraduate students and research supervisors listening in to find out how to structure MS research. I have drawn this. All these, I have drawn them from my now 35 years of involvement in research in 8 universities in the 3 continents, leading 2 universities as Vice Chancellor, and then leading 2 major research centers in the United States. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and without much ado, I will start. I beg to sit down and then teach this because I was involved in very dense conflict resolution issues of the African Union and the African Academy of Sciences this past week. So those things are tired me out. But appropriately, my research is my workshop. I don't call this a lecture because it's denser than a lecture. It is a workshop on how a university like this and the students and the lecturers can intensify their research. Because if you really take a look at it, what's the difference between developing countries and the advanced countries? You have issues of governance, but next to it is issues of densification of intellectual systems and deployment of knowledge in governance and economic development activities in ways that extract the intellect of the citizens of that country to provide opportunities for goods and services to be created and distributed. That's the essential difference between the United States and any of these other developing countries. The extent to which any of these countries can intensify research and educational support services will be the hallmark of how that country, with its group of universities, can elevate the quality of life and the standard of life of its citizens. That's essentially the difference. There is no other thing. Talents cut across many races and nationalities. So let's see how we can do it in a country like Nigeria, with institutions such as this university. So I will proceed. The title is Fostering Quality Assurance and Innovative Teaching and Research Practices in the Developing World. What is the introduction? So we'll go step by step. Okay, what are the objectives of this workshop? By the time I finish this workshop lecture, one who is listening will have achieved the following 5 objectives. First, to orient the participants to knowledge sectors that are critical to sustainable development at all jurisdictional levels. What is the meaning of that? Jurisdictional levels at the local level, at the state level, at the regional level, at the national level, and to some extent at the global level. Because no university trains anybody to be active only in one jurisdictional level. It must be global. Second, to show the framework and role of education in attainment of sustainable development targets. The whole world has decided that by 2030, there are certain goals and targets to be met by nations, society. What is the role of a particular university in the achievement of that? So every university must find its place with respect to making contributions to satisfy one or more of those goals. Third, to show approaches to framing research and instruction, because those are the instruments that universities must use for teaching and learning in tertiary academic institutions to support institutional graduates with respect to contributions to education and development at all levels. What is the function of a university in an area that is decrepit and blighted? That university has not satisfied its role to society. Fourth, to provide guidance to interested researchers on development of research proposals and implementation of research projects in tertiary institutions. So a lot of people are interested in research. They may have the talent for it, but what is the framework for them to get involved? What should they do to improve their personal research capacity and to search for opportunities in research so that they can elevate their own personal status as researchers and find some level of privacy in what they do, and to catch up to those researchers in the developed world. It is possible to do that. There is nothing that should make them not do that. And finally, to provide guidance to university instructors at all levels on ways of framing courses. There are courses to be framed and taught in universities to enable students to get involved, to light the candle of students so that they want to be world leaders in their fields and find reason to move on to global leadership in their specific fields. So that's what I want this course to achieve. Now, the first section is on sustainable development as the framework for deployment of knowledge sectors. That's the first section. What is research all about? To what utility? What is training all about? what's really education all about? So we must look at sustainable development, which is the framework for deployment of knowledge, and see where this knowledge can get to, or where universities can construct their programs to try to achieve prominence within it. Now, everybody says sustainable development. This is what education is all about, to provide input. What is sustainable development? What is sustainable development? Sustainable development has 4 pillars in my own reckoning. The first pillar of sustainable development is economic development. Somebody move something. Go back, please. I want a full screen like the one I have here. Okay, somebody has touched something. I want the full screen. Okay, let's go back. The full screen, please. Yes, don't touch it. I will move the slides myself now. So, sustainable development has 4 pillars. And the first pillar of sustainable development is economic development. That one right there. Without economic development, countries cannot set up to provide jobs and services. Democracies and other systems will fail. So economic development is there to provide jobs and services for the citizenry. Second, population management. If you have a huge population, so population must always be looked at with respect to per capita. Divide the resources of that country by the population, so you have per capita values. For this reason, when you do it on a per capita basis, Nigeria does not have as much advantage as a country like Botswana, as a country like Namibia. So that's really what matters, per capita, not the bulk. So sustainable development must always look at population and how that population is distributed with respect to resources in that country. The next one is environmental and natural resources stewardship. Very important, because having wealth may not necessarily translate to standard of life. You can have a country that has a lot of wealth, like Democratic Republic of Congo, but cannot deal with environmental stewardship in ways that bring good standard of living to people. The next one is social equity. Wealth may be concentrated in the hands of a few. Such a country cannot say that they are high on the pathway to sustainable development. It will be a country that is ravaged by conflicts because of lack of equity. So those are the 3 pillars of sustainable development. How is the country formatting its natural resources to take advantage of opportunities to engage in that march towards sustainable development? First, that country has to look at its own assets. The assets of the country differ from one country to the other. Those are the assets. Those are what the country has as its means. Natural resources. You take Nigeria, there are natural resources in the north, in the west, in the east, in the south. And then there are physical infrastructure systems, what that country has built up over time as its physical infrastructure. Process and decision support systems, which is where most African countries lack the capacity. They don't have good processes and decision support systems. Finally, service and governance systems, which are tied also to the process and decision support systems. So you have that. What are the operations the country need to put on the assets? So the country must have certain operations on the assets that it has. Okay? These operations are systems planning. We plan what is the country's strategy, what is the country's constitution, what is the country's system for dealing with disasters, what is the country's, what is the country's approach to dealing with COVID-19, what is the country's approach to dealing with fallout of students from institutions, many of those. And then what's the systems design? Who do it? Who are the people who do it? Systems maintenance and improvement. Not just that the systems exist, but there must be ways by which the system is maintained over time on each economic sector. This is where Nigeria lacks. Secondly, this is where the universities, like Base University, like many other universities, the polytechnics, other institutions have to key in. So this is the nexus for engagement of research and educational support systems. We move on. I have already said that those assets are there. So the top, I have already talked about, see, we have the assets and we have the systems. But those four pillars of sustainable development intersect with many sectors of the economy of any country. See, the sectors, so whichever sector you take, you cannot avoid those four pillars. And they comment and interlink. So research is not performed in a vacuum. Education is not provided in a vacuum. Any structure that is going to do well at each jurisdictional level, national, state level, regional, local government, and all that, must be aware of the placement of those research and educational support systems in the socio-economic development framework and aspirations of that country, of that state, of that local government area. The problem in all these countries is that those countries just jump up some government support some project that has no bearing to the strategic plan. It may not even be a strategic plan. So what I am just talking about now are the frameworks in which research and educational support systems of universities have alignment. Okay, let's go next. And for any country, we have to look at what that Earth system model support, the Earth observations. So you have forecasts because they're not living only for the present. You have decision support systems, and then what will come out are policy decisions and management decisions of that country, of that local government area. And I like to tell people that I'm not like some who project, one person who projects in China to the highest level. But the truth is, my 25 years of engagement with the Chinese has shown me that Chinese villagers with very limited education can plan projects and execute them at a very local level. I don't even want to talk about the United States because people will say, but Professor, that's the United States now, it's an advanced country. I want to talk about China that wasn't so advanced just a few years ago. So there's got to be organization at that level too, local government, state, and all that. And these are the kinds of frameworks to look at before any university. Now, I'm approaching university research education systems very, very slowly, getting into it to provide the framework of what a university should do in these areas. Before a university can really start designing its research programs and find its place, it must consider what are the trends in society that it must countenance in order to ensure that its research and training programs are relevant. So these are the areas. I don't know why the screen has not moved. The screen should move by now. Okay. Now, these are the areas. We are living, these are the areas and trends. We are living in an era, in a time of globalization of the economy. So if a university is being set only for the construct of domestic circumstances, it will not work. It will gain prominence a little but falter out to other universities that are designed to engage the world. You can have emphasis in certain areas in terms of jurisdiction, but you cannot avoid the fact that the word university means universal, in coverage and scope. So Globalization of the economy is important, and universities have to take note of that. Second, diversification of culture. University cannot be designed for just a monoculture. It has to accommodate all kinds of cultures and religion. It has to accommodate cultural diversity, religious diversity, gender diversity, social status diversity, and all. The university, especially in the third world, cannot be elitist, only set up for children of the rich. It will suffer from non-operational factors that will elevate it as an entity that can serve the whole world, not just a few. So that's important. That diversification of culture also means the universities have to diversify. Information explosion. There is high tech these days. We are approaching the fourth industrial revolution, and universities have to take note of it. In fact, the fact that this workshop is being broadcast this way and broadcast to many participants in other parts of the world, other parts of the nation, shows that the world has systems that may not have existed in the past. These systems are now going to be utilized. The IT, information technology age, the dawn of the fourth industrial revolution, will bring in technologies and capacities that were not there, and universities cannot be left behind. I can applaud the efforts of this university in the area of IT. I've inspected the facilities and I'm extremely impressed. The facilities, I can tell you, go up to the standard of those I'm used to in the technologically advanced countries. It's a good thing, and any university willing to go on this path has to copy what this university has done. Increase in competition. Universities are always going to compete. Competition is the mother of invention and innovation. So, if any university or researchers were shadowed from competition, it would be very difficult for them to improve. So, we would like to see lecturers, students from here compete with those from other institutions. They will compete in proposals written to that National Research Agency that is there. It sponsors extramural research, paid for many other of such research sponsors. Now, replacement of human labor with automation. It is unfortunate that the labor system in developing countries were manual human labor. But that cannot be the case because of global competition in trade and manufacturing. So any university that wants to employ manual labor in things will be left behind. It is automation, automation, automation. That is where the world is going. So having looked at the trends in the world, let's see, there are going to be some losers and some achievers. Unfortunately, with the kinds of the Global Innovation Index that I'm showing here, usually a number of years have to pass so that data will be compiled. So the data you see here is for 2015, up to 2015. Which countries have put in a lot and improved in the innovative ranking, innovation ranking? You see here, on the vertical axis is the Global Innovation Index. If the score is high, it means that that country has done well with innovation. That is innovation in research, innovation in training, innovation to bring new systems that help the quality of life of people in that country. On the horizontal axis is the GDP per person and purchasing power to show how that innovative index relates to that well-being of that country. Those at the top will be called leaders. Those in the middle will be called achievers. And those at the bottom side will be called underperformers. Unfortunately, you may not be able to see those numbers well, but I can read a few of them. For the leaders, you have Switzerland, you have Britain, you have Sweden, Netherlands, the United States, of course, Korea, New Zealand. So it is not that only the big countries occupy that leadership realm. There are some small countries there as well. You see New Zealand, you see Korea. Korea only some years ago was at the same level of socio-economic development and innovation as Nigeria. But Korea moved on. So it's among the leaders now. Let's see those in the middle, the achievers. The achievers, obviously, you have China. China would have been in the leadership group, but its population of 4 people is so much. So you will move slowly into that leadership group. Then you have Moldova, see, Vietnam, because Vietnam is very organized with means of production. And Vietnam was lower than Nigeria not too long ago. So you have a number of other countries there, India, you have Nepal, you have countries that you would not think would be above Nigeria. But then at the low realm, you have West African countries, Nigeria is part of that, and Algeria is moving up. And there are many, Ethiopia is trying to move up, Burundi, Zambia. So research, capacity building, the efficiency of educational institutions and all contribute to where each country falls in this trend. We will look at what happens in individual institutions and also look at what happens with individual researchers because it builds up from that level. Next. How does one, we are now getting into going from the global outlook, that is outlook in terms of what happens in a country, in research and all of that, to levels of what happens from the level of the country to individual institutions. So we go step by step towards that. You know, the world has agreed, and this is 2030, that there are the sustainable development goals. As a matter of fact, the person in charge of all that is the former Nigerian Minister of Environment, Mrs. Amina Mohammed, who was here, a good friend of mine. And Amina Mohammed is the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations. She was very instrumental in the set of these global sustainable development goals. If you look at the left-hand side, those are the global sustainable development goals. Within it is education. Education is sustainable development goal number what? Number 4. And there are many other things of youth, training and all that within the SDGs as we call them. So SDG 4 is on education. Anybody wants to set up a university that is relevant with respect to the satisfaction of the sustainable development goals and the engagement of its lecturers, its professors, its analysts, its students must look at this chart because whatever you set up must have some relevance to what is happening in society. So those are the sustainable development goals that the whole world has agreed to. But then from there, Africa has set up different continents have set up their own. You have the African Union Agenda 2063. They have their own targets with respect to energy, with respect to environment, with respect to women liberation, with respect to environmental sustainability, with respect to provision of energy, and many agriculture, telecommunications, civil works. How can you have any university that just ignores those? Such a university will be irrelevant because when those things are set up, those are the areas that grants, research grants, and externally sponsored research will focus on because it must satisfy those continental aspirations and targets. So the first step for the university is to look at that. Universities must set up centers and all that and address those so you can find partnerships with those continental institutions. The next one, from there, continental, is national. Nigeria has its own science and tech plans. How many researchers in the universities have ever looked at those? I am the primary author of the current federal government's National Science, Technology and Innovation Plan. I authored that in 2017. It is called the Nigerian National Science, Technology and Innovation Plan 2017 to 2030 through the Federal Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. How many researchers have looked at those to see what they're supposed to now implement? Then, you see there, so we'll have global, we have continental, we now have national, and the university should set up its own programs to satisfy programs at those three hierarchical levels. And what are the early university instruments for that? Number one, academic programs. Academic programs, what do they cover? What are the deanships? You have the university, what are the faculties? What are the schools? And there are a number of such schools. The university may not be able to completely cover all of them at the beginning, but you should make plans towards the attainment, coverage of each and the others, depending on its focus. Examples are School of Engineering and Manufacturing Systems, School of Information and Computer Science, School of Applied Sciences, School of Management and Entrepreneurship. They can have different names. You don't have to have this exact names, but they have to, in order to cover everything in time. It takes some schools about 20 years to do this. It takes others 5 or 10. Then you have School of Law and Social Science, School of Architecture, School of Agriculture, School of Medicine and Health Sciences, School of Natural Resources and Environment. These cover at least 90% of the academic cadre of the universities anywhere in the world. Now, another instrument that the university have must be advanced research institutes, schools and departments that constitute them are focused on disciplinary coverage. They are not focused on issues. Departments and colleges focus on disciplines. Centers and institutes focus on cross-disciplinary issues. It is not possible to create departments and faculties to focus on issues, because issues come and go. Huh? So if you come to the United States, we have COVID, we are going to have the Center for COVID research immediately. Okay? You are not going to have faculty for COVID research. You are not going to have faculty of natural hazards. You are not going to have that. It is an issue that comes and goes. But if that institution does not have centers and institutes on such things, it will be left behind. My University of Massachusetts had at least 62 centers. Ohio State University, maybe 100 and something. So forth and so forth. Now, so those issues are the focus of centers and institutes. Then industrial and policy support units and programs. Those are programs that link to society. Link, for example, extension services, short courses, all of that. All these things make a university. And as you see how I've drawn the arrows. Those arrows hit them, because all those things have to be done with respect to societal aspirations and targets, so that those entities will have opportunities. Next. What are Nigeria's needs that have been established already? So the institution has to look at those. Nigeria's social capacity challenges, economic, financial challenges, environmental and physical challenges. I'm not the one who set this up. This was set up in 2011. So whoever is trying to be relevant with respect to deployment and diffusion of knowledge must be able to tackle this. Take a stake, be a stakeholder in targeting one or more of these. What are the characteristics of a good institution? that will set up for prominence in research and learning, teaching of students, instruction. I constructed this some time ago, I think about 5 years ago, when I was trying to, please next, when I was trying to, next. Yes. So what are the characteristics of a good university that has a strong mission in research, teaching, and outreach, as well as associated task requirements? Let's focus on the left-hand side to look at task requirements for an aspiring university in research and teaching. Number one, that university right there, that university must implement systems for growth and propagation of intellectual thought. So that university must sit down and say, what have we implemented to propagate growth and intellectual thought? What does it have to do there? Go to the right-hand side. That university has to encourage debate among the faculty. It has to have good library services so that students and teachers can go there, researchers, and are able to dig in. Not only having all the books, but they must have some visual library resources as well. Then the third thing they should do in that regard is well-structured degree programs. Well-structured degree programs. Let's look at the second thing. The second thing on the left is catalysis for conversion of knowledge to economic sustainability. Some universities will produce knowledge, but they can have no ways of supporting the diffusion of that knowledge into society. This is the unfortunate thing with African and third world universities. They have no system for promotion of the diffusion of knowledge. So when they have a thesis, the thesis sits in the library and cannot be used anywhere because there are no systematic ways of taking that knowledge and feeding it into societal development systems. Even that neighborhood may still be very poor. The roads to that neighborhood may be very ramshackle and all dilapidated, but that university has a department of civil and construction engineering. Nobody uses the neighborhood roads as an example to do training of students and so forth. So that must be done. Catalysis for conversion of knowledge to economic sustainability. What should be done on the right-hand side? Engagement of industry in centers and projects, from instruction to entrepreneurship, policy support to agencies and commercial groups around that entity. Number three, on the left-hand side, with respect to task requirements, recruitment and training of students of great potential. Number three, of great potential in adequately equipped facilities. Base University is doing that well. On the right-hand side, you see the full catalog of what should be done. Setting of appropriate admission processes, fundraising for facilities development, widely cast advertisement of academic programs, and daily engagement of industry on curricula. Then, recruitment and support of the best researchers, educators, and administration. Use excellence as the best level criterion. Target diasporans. Only other universities that do that in Africa. And I was Vice Chancellor of the Botswana National University in Southern Africa. I invited back almost all the Botswana PhDs in America and everywhere and gave them jobs. University. That they can bring their talents and help in their original countries' social economic development. And you can recall that most of them are happy to provide service. Now, engagement of policymakers agencies, that must happen, and intensification of research alliances, that must happen. So this is a good template for universities that intend to promote research and promote good teaching and all that. So we go to the next. We are going closer and closer to individuals. Now, why all of this? Why all of this? This is a schematic that I delivered at the US National Academy of Sciences a few years ago, and where all that information goes. Where do the universities contribute? The national government. I created this chart. You see information from everywhere, data for national planning, which Nigeria doesn't do. I'm very, very happy about it. There are very few African countries that do this. I do not know why the Southeast Asian countries do this. South America is doing it now. I'm not even mentioning America because people will say, Professor, you've been in America for 5 years. That's an advanced country. I'm talking about the other countries that are at the same level of socio-economic development, at least they were initially with Nigeria, with Ethiopia, Southern Africa, Egypt, Nigeria, Morocco. By the way, some of those countries have gone up. It's a small country like Botswana, Mauritius, and the next one, Rwanda. Now, but what should be the case? Anybody who can declare himself or herself as being a good politician, minister, or whoever they may be, and does not link up to this kind of thing, is not worth that office, should be taken away pronouns. Now, first, the academic institutions generate data for national planning. Government agencies have laboratories that do too or should. Corporations, banks, industry, analysts do so. Civil society groups also do. So the government, the role of government, at least the intellectual systems in government, is to find ways of collecting all that information, screening them, and establish them in databases. That screening process would also consider the fact that some of that information will be sensitive and should not come around the general public because they have implications on Nigeria's security. You see there, that's where they go. You see other information that Nigeria needs for planning, universities and all that. When you want population data for Kano State, where should you go? That's a national data. When you want how many people have this disease in a cross-river state, that's where the national data comes. Not to roam around and start a project on that before you can solve your main issue. Right. Now, but where did all that information come from? A university like Base University, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, Kano State, University of Nnamdi, right? So now you have the non-sensitive information that can be manipulated and all that. You have the security information for this country that somebody cannot immediately access. But then all of that has a platform, has the bottom, and these are the users to improve this country. Academic institutions, public agencies, so that they just don't manufacture data in their head. They press and publish it so they can inform the public correctly. Civil and corporate groups, libraries. If you go to any national library, you have the pieces of students from any university in Nigeria. People can go and find out who has done what and when. Okay. Internet broadcasters, so that they don't broadcast all this rubbish that most of them do. Right? So this is the framework for contribution by a university like this university. Now, we are now going to focus very specifically on universities. Research promotion approaches in university. What should the university like this university do? Either national universities, regional universities, private universities, church universities, mission universities, and so forth. So that's what we are going to focus on, after which there may be a small break before I resume. Now, this is a very important part. What are the instruments that a university can use to promote research? What is the difference between MIT, my University of Massachusetts, my university? By the way, I can name my universities, they are very strong universities. I started in 1988 as assistant professor at the University of Wisconsin. From there, I moved in 1990 to Purdue University as an assistant professor of civil and environmental engineering in 1990. From there, I moved to Washington as a senior person in government, and later I became the chair of that science board. But I also was professor at George Washington University. Then I spent the next 5 years from 1995 to 2000 as a reformed endowed professor and institute director of the University of Massachusetts. And the next 18 years as a Duke Energy Distinguished Professor and Institute Director at the University of Massachusetts at the University of North Carolina. Before I came to become the Vice Chancellor of the African University of Science and Technology here in Abuja. Went back to Ghana, Ethiopia, China, and all that. Now, all those have been involved in research, right? So I have seen what universities have done wrong and what they've done right. What these African universities should do to step up and catch up with universities in Brazil, China, and all those other places that I told in the US and beyond. There is structure with research promotion units in the upper administration. That's number one. There is structure with research promotion units in the upper administration. For so many years, African universities, except those in South Africa, those in Kenya, and those in Egypt, have left behind because of structure. They always wanted to have Vice Chancellor, then Deputy Vice Chancellor for Administration, and Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. If you don't have a paid Deputy Vice Chancellor, you're wasting time. I can tell you that. The paid Vice Chancellor is Deputy Vice Chancellor for Research and Entrepreneurship. Because those are the Vice Chancellors that must sit over research centers and entrepreneurship support centers. And those entrepreneurship support centers are not the same as research centers. They deal with many things that are commercial. If you take them out, there's no MIT. You take them out, there's no Harvard. You take them out, there's no Oxford. I can tell you that. Those are the entities that invested in South Africa and made it very difficult for the United States to have embargo on South Africa during Mandela. I was there, I was part of those things. If you don't have, it's only now that some universities in Africa are doing. But South Africa has done that for years, and you see what has happened to the University of Cape Town, Stellenbosch, and University of Witwatersrand. They all have this. Go and look at their structure. Now, second, because I'm at the risk of having this lecture run into 2 days, so I'll summarize things and move on. Now, development of cross-disciplinary research centers, I've already explained why, so I will explain again, that deal with issues rather than disciplines. Departments and colleges are for disciplines. Centers and institutes are for issues. And there are fundamental differences between those. COVID is an issue. Natural hazard is an issue. It's not a department. It is not a college. But aeronautical engineering is a discipline. Geology is a discipline. Sociology is a discipline. Anthropology is a discipline. Law is a discipline, not an issue. Those are departmental and college affairs. But the other ones are center and other associated affairs that must be dealt with as cross-disciplinary issues. Contributors can come from environment, can come from law, can come from engineering, can come from that. Disciplines need to have specified boundaries to meet accreditation requirements. They cannot be so diffuse. Centers don't have to. Now, hiring and retention, so number 3, hiring and retention of research-minded lecturers Not everybody has care for research. Research-minded lecturers, and regardless of whether they have PhD from Harvard, they may not have there for research and interest. And professors will support in terms of periodic training and fostering of internal collaboration. Development of research facilities, and I give credit to Base University. I'm very impressed. Development of research facilities that are most efficiently shared. Every department cannot have the same equipment. Some of the equipment are very expensive. I used $20 million of Duke Energy money to equip my laboratory when I was assistant director and economics director. So how many departments are going to have $20 million? They will have. So those centers must be accessible, which you have about of them, accessible to people from the department. Development of research facilities that are mostly efficiently shared and not left to decay through the disinterest of faculty members and associated research personnel. Fifth, organization of internal core research competition. You can't help that. People are going to have PhD from top institutions, and because of lack of engagement of research over the past 5 years, they are going to get stale in research skills. So what any university that wants to promote research should do, and by the way, most of the world's interest in institutions is the ranking, it's by research. So you cannot say, oh, we don't want to be a research institution. You are forced to be, because universities are all about creation of knowledge and teaching of students too. It's not about just teaching students. And there are some people that are going to learn by research, including me, of how I came to this level. They will learn by research. We'll get to that in the teaching part. Now, development of research facilities, we talked about it. Organization of internal core research competition, because it is that internal core research competition that lights the intellectual capital again that may have waned over time. So they compete in that core research, they may get 100,000, 50,000, or whatever the case may be, half a million, 1 million, 3, 4, and then they do their small core research projects. From there, they get data that can help them as preliminary information for use in writing faithful research proposals to the Canadian agencies, to Rockefeller, to many MasterCard, to others. They will have some core data that has come already. It is very different when you tell me that I investigated this and I found these preliminary results. I would like to get money and expand this research. Those people are likely to get that money first before abstracts. I've changed more than 200 research panels everywhere. That's just the way we think. Now, organization of internal core, let me not talk about that again. And the question is that in that university, who are the ones helping in research? Without our graduate students, postgraduate students will be nowhere. Professor Inyang is no longer, after 35 years of lab and using my eyesight to microscopes and many other stuff, it's not going to be possible for me to sit down and shake the things anymore. It is these postdocs that come from the developing countries. It is these PhD students that come and work in hundreds of them, Brazil, China, wherever they come from. And many Nigerians have had them, several of them. These are the people that will be research leaders in those labs in America. And here, they should be too. You don't expect them to pay 2 million naira in tuition and come and do that when they have a lot of pressures on them from their families. You have a master's, why are you doing that? When are you going to pay your rents on your own? So you have to provide some level of tuition waiver and money in the range of 50,000 to 60,000 to 80,000 naira per month for them to work in that laboratory as part of that project or part of that school system, being very, very specific interest of that school. This semester, let me give you an example. Because of COVID, I am visiting distinguished professor of environmental engineering at Indian Institute of Technology in Mumbai because I don't want to go there because of COVID. I'm giving 2 lectures a week from here by broadcast. Now, there in that laboratory, there are 25 PhD students and masters. Oh, none of them PhDs because Indian Institute of Technology, which is much more difficult to enter than MIT. It's difficult to enter because for every one position, there are 50,000 applicants. India has a population of 1.3 billion people. It's more difficult to enter our MIT than it is to enter IIT. It's very difficult to enter. Now, so IIT has what we call Institute Postdocs and PhD students. They don't pay fees, and they work on many research projects, and I spend 1 hour with each of them to advise them different things. Yeah. They sit and talk, and you'll be thinking a professor is talking, but this person is a second year undergraduate, and he's speaking like he has already published several papers. And he's talking about Indian national problems, and the details of that project at the same level of my postdocs in the United States. Can Nigeria do that? Can this university do that? Why is it possible for them to do that? And universities in Africa can't, except Cape Town and Stellenbosch and American University of Cairo, Alexandria, and the Senegalese, and a few others. Can be done. Can very well be done. Now, so finally, because as I said, I don't want to spend the whole week on this. Provision of incentives for faculty and students to publish their research work in peer-reviewed journals, just like what the successful universities have done. This past month, I was UNESCO's, I'm the author of the next year's upcoming UNESCO manual on how to write peer-reviewed articles. It's going to be distributed worldwide by UNESCO next year. It's called UNESCO Guidance Manual on Authorship of Peer-Reviewed Journals, released by UNESCO in France next year. I spent 3 months doing nothing on that. Now, so I will give some preview of that in this lecture when we get to that, the next section. But African researchers have to write. Chinese used to write very poor papers 10 to 15 years ago. When you said I have been editor of all these journals, 30 journals, different. So I've seen a lot of submissions in my life. Yeah, so now, Chinese papers used to be very poor. Not anymore. They have overtaken us in the United States in terms of the number of papers, not quality yet. But Nigeria has a population of 200 and something million, so I expect more papers from Nigeria. We should not have Algerians every year beat Nigerians in the number of papers. We should not have South Africans do that every time. And Kenyans are creeping up. And Ethiopians too. So Nigeria should publish more. For all the fine universities, Nigerians are very intelligent people. In every institution overseas, I see them. Yes, but they should write more. Now, so that's where we are. Any university wants to promote research. These are the instruments. And any university that does this is going to rise in the rankings and very close to the top. You know, let me give you a very small example. When I reached Botswana. The president of Botswana, Felix Mogai, some of you may hear about him. He's the one who single-handedly was able to bring that country to the level they are now as a country in Africa with the highest per capita income. Nigeria had $2,000 per person per year, Botswana 18,000, because it's a very well organized country. Add to them Mauritius, add to them Namibia, and then South Africa comes next. But because when they started that country, they were very interested in deploying intellectual systems. Botswana has a public enlightenment readership level of 80% of the population, including grandmothers in villages can speak and write English. So the president of that country was interested in me coming as the vice chancellor, be very active in the cabinet, and then help transform that country as a resource-focused country to an intellect-focused country, because the economy is dependent on diamond, but they want to diversify to use knowledge systems, just like Nigeria is trying to do, but not engaging enough. Now, so I arrived in Botswana in 2013, and we set up systems, just to let you know that it doesn't take long to do these kinds of things. I engaged the international community. I attended their cabinet with their president, and we reorganized the university, promoted research, employed all these means, and Botswana's ranking rose by 5,000 places in the international ranking, the university, in 1 year. It was the highest rise in international ranking of any university worldwide in 1 year. I went to India to collect the prize. So what I'm saying is that it is not people just sitting down to talk and are willing to do what is needed to promote research. Without in research, a country like Nigeria cannot achieve its national aspirations. It is a joke to think that it could ever do that. It is not possible. Not just an issue of research, but fomenting systems for the diffusion of intellectual products into governance, into industrialization efforts, into entrepreneurship, into foreign trade. That's all it takes. Okay, so let's proceed. Typical research promoting activities, some of which are promoted by the existence of research centers in universities. What is that university to target? And remember, we are still talking about research. We've not gone to teaching and learning yet. Now, this is the catalog put together. First, industrial internships for students and faculty. Contracted training of staff. Go and tell Mobile that you can train their staff in IT. They can send them here. Okay? Tell Tellerams in Vegas, other ones setting up here. Applied research in collaboration with internal entities. It doesn't mean that you have to be the only one doing the research project. Go and share that you have knowledge in the sector, collaborate. Ask other ones, research Dangote, tell him, and you can improve the granular nature of the cement, that you can improve the texture of the cement, that you have new additives, local additives for cement, or you hang on to the making of blocks. Use laterite from different parts of Nigeria, use other kinds of materials to see whether there could be replacement for imported additives to cement. I can name you 200 more of such things. I authored Nigeria's national research plan for the next 10 years. So I know the setup of Nigeria's that was approved unanimously by the Federal Executive Council. I'm still waiting for what they will do with it. If some minister is interested in doing something that was sponsored with a lot of money, bringing me to Nigeria to do it. Now, joint publications, field demonstration projects, material testing and certification processes using these 5 laboratories that this university has. Support for student activities, I've talked about that. Technology extension and outreach services. Why should, when you get into agriculture, help establish agricultural extension centers in all of northern Nigeria, where there is land? Every university in America, you hear name something State University was an extension center. Oklahoma State University, Michigan State University, Ohio State University, Iowa State University, and every one of those state universities was an extension center for agriculture. That is why if any of them wants to give their full name, including the one I attended, they will be something State University of Agricultural and Mechanical Services. If you see their full names, which they never write again in their diplomas, then they give you a PhD. So that's how they all started. And University of Michigan and all this. As a matter of fact, Michigan State University was asked to help establish Nsukka, the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, in the 1950s. My father was one of the first students there then. So that is how I was able to, when the person who was the white Vice Chancellor of that university and went back to become Vice Chancellor of Utah State University. Utah State University invited me as a speaker, and I went and I saw him. So you remember, in 1962, when my dad in 60 was there. So why I'm saying this is that all these big name universities had extension services. And they were not all as academic as they are now. So this university and many other universities can follow that pathway and reach their status. Now, academic program accreditation, you cannot avoid that. You accredit in Nigeria, you accredit overseas. You can either decide, and you can do both. Some people say, oh, we want the British system. European system has a different and then the American system, we have our own. But I would say that I can tell you this, that the European system is transforming to the American system. And let me say just a few words there. For a country like Nigeria, developing countries per se, they are better off having a postgraduate program that requires that students take some courses around their topic. Why? Because this is not Europe, where they can gain that around. So a lot of people went to European schools, and I go there later on, have the problem of not having the ancillary knowledge around their topic, because they just collected their topic and wrote the thesis. And you've given them the opportunity to be on their own. They don't take structured courses around the topic. So they are likely to do a lot of research around that topic. When something just slightly deviates, they tell me that, oh, I'm professor of yellow pens, but cannot deal with green pens. What kind of mission is that? You have to know things around that sector so that you expand your capacity, because we cannot in Africa or South America and China train each PhD on some narrow topic, then we will need 2,000 of them to solve societal problems. So you must design your postgraduate program to force them to take 30 credit hours of supporting knowledge. I want them to know thermodynamics if they are studying beds, the advancement. I want them to know social cultural theories if they are doing sociology. Not just to tell me that they are checking what rural women are doing in Adamawa. And when I call them and ask them those theories, they don't know. Because they didn't take advanced courses surrounding this stuff. That's one of the reasons they fall down when they come up. British system, which are very important, is changing to the American system. Because, okay, I don't want to talk too much on that. Engagement in population and implementation of public policies, yes, of course, should not be diverse from that. Now, I will go on and take research to an end, and then I will break and come back on teaching and all that. Now, people talk about research, and I've heard everywhere in Africa. You may just know that the Ethiopian Civil War interrupted my role as U.S. ambassador scholar to Ethiopia. What was I doing there? Half my time was spent on spreading research and the Ethiopian government and all that on these matters beyond my role. So the war has made us be taken out of there. Now, steps from basic research to entrepreneurship. A lot of people in Africa, South America, and the Caribbean. I went to the Caribbean to the Russian Center of University of Science and Tech of Jamaica. Fortunately, I did not stay. I came back. So it's the same. These South America, Caribbean, Africa, Central America to some extent. Some parts of Southeast Asia are all the same. But they all want the translation from basic research to production, market introduction. How else can a country grow? A country would normally grow from the universities making contributions and the national research network of that country, just like South Africa. That's why they have those national research network, and that's what Nigeria did, because what was that minister during Obasanjo? That national research network. From my work for Nigeria's national research plan, I know that Nigeria has about 75 government research institutes. None of them is working except about 3. Zero in Lagos, there's one on Naseni, and one that I would grade as reasoning. But most of the rest are around. Nobody's trying to put them together. But that's the topic for different things. But here, there are steps from basic research to national research productivity. We start from basic research. That is the focus on theory. There are some people who say, oh, universities in the developing world should not deal with theory. That is the preserve of countries like the United States, Russia, and Europe. No, it's a mistake. Some of them should focus on it. Because if you don't do that, you are condescending, you are giving that, you are surrendering that to white countries, and you want them to always be in the lead. We want to go to the moon too. The argument that if you, in the developing world, just want to surrender that, you are going to surrender that forever, please. Some people need to be in that. Then the next step is applied research. This is where you deal with concepts and technology. This is the kind of thing I told you that most students should walk around only on her or his thesis. They have to surrender themselves to concepts. And in doing so, they must not forget the heritage of the part of the world they come from in that sense. Science is not only for white people. Philosophers came to Egypt to learn, not from ancient Greece, and many others. And give a lecture on that on another day. Yes. So science is not for white people only. Science is for everybody. The Chinese had civilization 5,000 years before some of the things that we in the West give credit to. They discovered some of them. The Arabs discovered mathematics And the Russians are some of the best mathematicians in the world. We give credit to them. So the Italians came over to the United States and contributed much to the development of the atom bomb. Yes, we had Taylor, but we also had many others. There are some famous names. I just don't want to mention some of them. But the concepts prototype on experimental development, techniques, products, and services, that is where you start to collaborate with industry. Because they have to be market studies. It's got to be prototype. The other ones may have been in the laboratory. But you need field prototypes and all that, so you bring it closer and closer to the market. Then production, market introduction, all of that. So this is the framework. And the university is mostly in this first three. In these first three or so, but then must have relationships with industry and market and policy people to try to get into this one too. So that is the framework. Now, there's an Ethiopian friend of mine, Abate. I want to give credit to him because he's the one who created this table and I had a few things and all that. Abate is an Ethiopian young researcher. So there are, in summary, from this sector, there are three types of research. And the university should not say that this guy is it's useless research. No, no research is useless. And people in society try to say, oh, but we don't want that. The university must be very careful in characterizing research and not be dismissive. And I'll show you a few things that I found out when the US government sent me to one of the young PhDs to go to where Einstein grew up, to go and look at what he did. I will show you, we are getting there, what I found out. That was in 1995. Around that time, my PhD, the US government selected a few of us, and they were the young PhDs for them. Now, so we look at three principal types of research. The first type of research is basic research. We have already said a few things about that. Now, the next one is applied research. We'll look at the characteristics of this with respect to evaluation criteria. And the final one is action research. And I will, let's say, in terms of origin, how does somebody get to do basic research? What is the prompt to that? The prompt for that, number one, wonder. 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 The kid that wonders when he or she is just in primary school. Let that kid continue to wonder. Personally, I was like that. I wouldn't say I like being in classes. I didn't like any of this. Now, curiosity. I want to know why the world is like that. I want to know why that actor is like that. Intelligence. I want to gather information to know. So not when they tell me about this, I don't know. Intelligence, I want to get that. Basic research, driven by those two human characteristics. Applied research, we have observed that there are some practical problems. But isn't there a systematic way of dealing with this? What is stopping us from doing this? We don't have the data. We don't know a lot of things about these challenges. And we don't know how to construct systems, design systems to deal with this. That is applied research. There is a purpose. And it's not just basic curiosity. Third, action research. There are policies for us to implement. What do we know? Remember that framework I said you dump information from government, from the universities and all that. That's where we want to put that information so we can extract and use in creating policy. How many of Nigeria's policies and other policies around derive from knowledge and derive from analysis? Well, this is not experiments with research or some research in the lab, but research is research. Research doesn't necessarily have to have experimentation in the lab. It can be field studies, it can be evaluation of options, it can be analysis, and that's used in the social sciences. That's research too. Right. Now, scope. For basic research is the universe. I don't care where I get that information. An apple may fall from a tree, and I decide to analyze why and how it relates to my model. Human issues with applied research. We apply research to treat human-generated problems. If humans were not there, we would probably not look at any applied research. Humans have introduced complexity into this world. They have introduced environmental challenges. They've introduced facilities that are not natural but built, but those facilities will decay. What is the material to use in repairing them? I tried to look at dust, I tried to look at petroleum tar, and those petroleum tars are investigated with respect to their adequacy in bending cracks on that highway. It is applied research. Now, procedure. There are procedures. I'll leave this because I'll leave a lot of this by my friend. Why are we here? We should have gone by. Yes, sir. Please follow me. Follow me. Okay, maybe I didn't tell you to switch. Switch. Okay. So you see what I have just talked about. I will not go through word for word because I will leave this lecture. I need to keep it. Leave this lecture with you, and I can repeat it from time to time. Now, so you see what I have just explained, tabulated in ways that help researchers who are listening out there and in this room. Now, types of research outputs. When you do research, what are you trying to produce? What is the output? Is it just the paper? Is it just the report? What is it? You have to know what your output should be before you start. As I tell you, as I told you before, I mentioned that we are going from the global to the individual. Very soon we'll get close to a postgraduate student, what he or she should do. So we've looked at the macro, we have looked at the medium scale, now we are approaching the researcher himself or herself, be that researcher a professor, a lecturer, a postdoc, or a student. Now, first, the research may come out as a communication. Communication, a journal article, a conference paper, a poster, a research final report, a communique and brief, or advisories. I can do research and tell NEMA, the Nigeria's National Emergency Management Agency, that no farmer should plant his or her crop now, because a downpour is coming from what we have analyzed the weather patterns. That output is an advisory to the public. We can do research and tell them that we have discovered a new strain of COVID, and that it is moving in this pattern, that area should be avoided. That is a contribution that is a communique, but still a research advisory to the benefit of the general public. What about processes? Processes can also be something that come out as a research contribution. You can have codes of standards and codes of practice. You can have the Standard Organization of Nigeria in setting specifications and all that. Okay? Standards there, codes. You can come out as a pattern We have discovered a new process and constructed a new equipment or configured a new chemical material that is of use to society. That's a research product. And then it could be a methodology for investigating something or a party. That is a research product. And that is likely to come from modelers in science. We could have created a database that has categorization that are more user-friendly. And that is a change. And that is a thanks. Who is there? Please watch me. And that is a contribution. So those are the different types of products that can come from research. Yes. So that is the categorization. Research does not mean only a paper. Doesn't mean only a group. Doesn't mean only any of those things. So you join me and change now to the next one. The next one. Research can also be tangible products. And those tangible products include computer programs, include new equipment, include new materials, include manufactured objects, and observation maps. Those are research. Change with me. Change with me. Okay, I think I need to do this because of students who are watching out there. Okay. So this section deals with self-improvement tips for aspiring researchers in an academic institution. We are done with what the institutions should do. Now we are dealing with individual researchers. What is their take? We go into that. First, to deal with this, we have to really ask some very specific questions. What are the elements of thought? You just don't get into a university and say, I want to do research. I just need research. There are certain philosophical issues you have to deal with about yourself. You are reasoning your culture, your ethics, before you can engage in anything like this. All right? So let's look at what thought is. It is not possible to do research without thinking. Being somebody who thinks critically. What are the elements of thought? A researcher must be able to establish what he or she is saying or thinking and categorize those among these 8 different types of outputs. First, let's start with the purpose of the thinking. What are you, why are you thinking? Why are you in this business of thinking of this? How are you here? The purpose of thinking. What's the goal? What's the objective? You want to give an opinion on COVID. For what reason? Okay, next. What is the question? Because some people think they don't know what the issue they are thinking about is all about. They are confused, they talk carelessly. You can talk carelessly on the street, in the marketplace, in a ballroom dance, but not in the business of research. Now, third, information. What are the data, facts, observations, and experiences you have on that issue that form the basis of your thought? You can just make a useless statement that has no bearing or no facts in it. And then you expect seasoned researchers to listen to you. No, they will not listen to you and get angry and hate you if you are in the business of research. Yes, that's what happens. Now, interpretation and inference. What are the conclusions and the inference you draw from those things you know? So what you have that back you up is this your point of view? That is there. You have your point of view, you have a right to it. But are those based on the facts? Nobody will criticize, nobody will crucify you for having a point of view. You have that. You have the perspective, life, vision, all that. The next one are, what are the implications and consequences? What are the assumptions? You have to know, okay, I arrive at this thinking with these assumptions. I have assumed that the country thing came from South Africa. I have assumed that the people that know best about this are the medical doctors. An assumption. That medical doctor may not know. Some assumptions are valid and some are not. Okay, now, so assumption, and sometimes your research output is based on the quality of your assumptions. If your assumptions are egregiously wrong, then your output are going to be wrong too. Yes. Then concepts. What concepts? What do you know around the issue? This is where I told you, Madam Dean, that students have to know concepts around what they are studying or what they are writing about. Those who don't know theories and the hierarchy of those theories and the heritage of those theories are likely to be floating. They don't have any historical perspective. They don't know what others have done. And they stop in structure. They're relying on them going to do it on their own in the library. And some of them are lazy. I have only 5 minutes to play this place. I throw it out. Yeah, some of them are not going to be interested in deepening their knowledge. So we force them to do those courses, and they don't pass their comprehensive, they're out. But now, next, features of a good and ethical intellectual. Who is an intellectual? Some people call themselves intellectuals or not. This is how we judge. Next, please. This is how we judge intellectuals. Right? An intellectual must have integrity. Cannot just bend to government. Okay, we should break after this slide. Should not bend to just government, intellectual integrity, or bend to any other persuasion. Intellectual humility, fair-mindedness in reviews, intellectual perseverance. I tried to find the answer I could not. I didn't do it. Intellectual perseverance, confidence in reasoning, intellectual courage. I have the courage to say who won that election based on the tally. I do not care what people think and talk about who should win. But based on the voting and the analysis of the voting patterns and compilation of the results, this is who won. And I do not care whether I am persuaded by other interests. Such an intellectual who was drafted into that election is worth his or her salt. But if he defers to authority or political patronage, he is or she is not an intellectual. So we will stop here for a 10-minute break and see whether you want a continuation. We are at half the presentation. We would come either today or another day and continue with the rest. It's usually a very deep course that has now been constructed into 2 hours so far, and another 2 hours will be. I thank you very much, those who have listened today. And if we have to proceed with part 2, we will do it either today or on a different day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prof. A very insightful discussion. And as you were talking, I was looking at what happens in Nigeria. In fact, I'm surprised that you mentioned about the national research policy, because that is not circulated around. I don't think many universities know about it. And, okay. Sorry. And secondly, Um, most of the research in Nigerian universities, they are not based on trends in society. They are based on papers to earn promotions. So they're not aimed at problem solving. So we have that problem. And then also the partnership with industries is not there. Because I think the people who head these industries, they were also university students at one time. And maybe they have a wrong conception of research that is done in the university. So they do not think that the research in the university could be used to solve their problems. So the academic, they stay in the ivory tower, and then the industry stay on their own. And another issue that you made me aware of in this country is that we have a lot of these research institutes. I don't know whether anybody has read anything, any research coming out from there. Or I've been thinking, okay, since the COVID started, we've been doing online teaching. Nobody, well, let me not say nobody, I haven't read about the impact this is having on students, the impact of just sitting and staring at your system that you're reading, and also mental health issues that have resulted from COVID. So I think this is a very good framework that all universities should have, because it's going to help them focus on the research. When you start thinking, when you wonder, something happened, why is this happening this way? The curiosity leads you to find out, why is this happening this way? And then you read about the work of others, and then you do the concepts. I was trained in the UK, so I understand what you're talking about. I had my PhD in the UK, and I had friends who had their PhD in the USA, and I know the difference so much. Because with us, just pick a topic and then you do your research, just like you said. And I know the shortcomings of that system. So if we migrate towards the American system, it's going to be very beneficial to us. You've given us so much information today to work on. And from your discussion, I just know that we haven't started anything.
You're doing very well.
Yes, so yes, we need to work harder so that our research, so that our be applied. Our research can lead us to those sustainable goals. So thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, I am very impressed by the university. And if the schools are to improve, it will be in the private university setting.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so we take the break.
Introduce group here. We have very deep interactions with Professor Islam. He engages us also that. I want to introduce Denisa. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, there's one here. Thank you. Thank you. I have this team, my Nigerian team, I call it. They are resident here and here with me in the office. Their boss, his name is an American, is a Venezuelan American. He's my chief of staff. Unfortunately, he's not here. His name is Gonzalez, Miguel Gonzalez. He's the head of the office here, my office here. And he is now in Venezuela because of he has not come back yet because the father died. The father died. And next to him in the hierarchy is Mr. Yunusa Misbahu. Stand up and get recognized. He is a senior technical assistant. Much of what we presented today were put together in this manner. He's from Kogi State. Yes, yes. And next to him is someone who's in the office. That's Christina. Christina is Both of them are computer people as administrative secretary. So a lot of things we do with you and yes, professor of Islam. You will soon be. We don't. We are running around now and doing things. I'm trying to set up high standards. You will be. Yes. Yes, they are setting up intellectual frameworks, which is very good. And then I can't forget Angel. Angel was very instrumental. He's a media person for us from Adamawa State. And Angel was very instrumental in part of the thing we are doing for Nigeria's National Science and Technology Innovation. By the way, every university in Nigeria should have that. It's very thick. And I'm very disappointed that the Ministry of Science and Tech, under the minister is a friend of mine, they have left that thing to sit on the desk. Every university should have that because I have this times 20.
We get the DVC to get for us.
Yeah,
we must have.
Yes.
Yeah, we must have.
Yes, I'm very disappointed.
Yes.
Because you see, what all these other schools must do is to tie their research proposals to national declarations so that the Canadians can say, so if they do this, they can. That's why they get those projects. Even Guildford would appreciate a linkage between a proposal. We have argued in support of Guildford, allowing private universities to apply for grants. If they still delay it, which I know that it won't take long, that will happen. If they still delay you, then you can have somebody as a partnership between here and the public university. So you will get a part of that.
Okay. Okay.
So that can be. Now, so that's my team. It's a small but very active team. Doing much for Nigeria and the UNESCO Paris. Thank you very much.
I think we will also have your contacts and so on, so that because he has, awoken the interest in research, especially in research that can lead to sustainable development, achievement of our sustainable development goals. And not just any research that you were saying. There must be a goal towards that. So if we have you can also assist us, especially some of our staff, and in training on how to go about research and getting those postgraduate students that your research is not just for you to do a thesis, but your research should be aimed at solving a problem or explaining a phenomenon. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you. And I add that in this same lecture, portion that we haven't covered that deal with how a graduate student should arrange the master's PhD, how they should deal with humility, how they should really spreading out their research tasks over that master's and PhD degree, and how they should write articles. There's several sections of articles that they are all there. So this was designed for a full semester course.
Yes.
The aspects are brought out were just for this 2-hour workshop.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Would it be possible, it's a DVC IT, their research, would it be possible if we have, maybe we put all our postgraduate students together, the seminar group, so that if he gives them a talk on how to come up with, research projects and how to go about it. Oh, great. Okay, that would be very useful. So we'll call upon you through our DVC, if you can do that. This trimester we finished. We're just about to start exams. So when we come back in January, we'll get in touch. I pray that you'll be around. You'll be in Ethiopia. And so that, in India.
Yeah, that Robin.
Yeah.
And we organize.
We let you know in advance.
You see, I'm even here teaching a semester course in India.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So we will do the same. He has some materials that are not that.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you, the group, Angel, Christiana, and Inusa. Thanks. We appreciate
And
you.
I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I did not introduce a very critical one without which I can't even show up. That is Aniekan. Aniekan, stand up. Aniekan is a personal assistant, and I cannot go anywhere without him. I'll be in trouble.
Yeah, Nathan, thanks for being here. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
I
thanks.
appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, thank you, my brother.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Prof, we truly appreciate your presence.